Have you ever looked at a company and just felt like they're playing a different game? They set whatever price they want and we just kind of have to pay it. Well, that feeling, it's not in your head. It's a real, powerful economic force called market power. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain to see exactly how it works, why it's a huge deal for your wallet, and how it secretly shapes the world all around us. So let's jump in.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at what happens when a company is the only game in town. Then, we'll crack open their secret playbook to see how they really maximize their profits. After that, we'll uncover the real cost of that power for all of us, see how things get shaken up when a rival enters the picture, and finally, we'll dive into the real-world chess match of corporate strategy.
All right, so where does this kind of power even come from? Well, it all starts with a really simple scenario, one that perfectly shows what happens when a single company is holding all the aces.
I mean, really think about it. If you're in a big city and one coffee shop decides to double its prices overnight, you walk down the street to the next one, right? No big deal. But what happens when there is no next one?
This is the perfect example. Imagine you're a farmer in a remote area. You can't just load up tons and tons of grain and drive it a few hundred miles to find a better price. It's not practical. You sell to the one local grain elevator. That's it. This elevator isn't a price taker who has to accept whatever the going rate is. No, they're a price maker. And that ability to influence, or let's be honest, pretty much dictate the price, well, that's the very definition of market power.
And here's the fundamental difference. In a really competitive market, you just take the price the market gives you. But a company with market power gets to make a choice. They know that if they want to sell more stuff, they have to lower the price. And that core trade-off, selling more versus getting a higher price, that is the absolute heart of their entire strategy.
So they have the power. But the real question is, how do they use it? Let's crack open the Monopoly playbook. If you're the one in charge, what's the golden rule you'd follow to squeeze every single dollar of profit out of the market?
Okay, the goal for any business is brutally simple. Make as much profit as possible. And that's just your total revenue, all the money coming in, minus your total costs. But for a monopolist, finding that perfect sweet spot where profit is maxed out, well, that's a calculated science.
Now this, right here, this is the golden rule. And don't let the jargon scare you. It's actually pretty simple. Marginal revenue is just the extra cash you get from selling one more thing. Marginal cost is what it costs you to make that one more thing. The rule is just common sense. As long as the next sale makes you more money than it costs you, you keep going. You stop at the exact point where they're equal. That's your sweet spot.
So it's this little two-step dance. First, you find that magic quantity, where the money from the next sale equals the cost of the next sale. MR equals MC. Then, and this is the key part, you look at the demand curve and you ask, okay, for this number of units, what's the absolute highest price people are willing to pay? And boom, that's your price. Notice you don't set the price where MR equals MC. You use that point to find the quantity, and then you jack the price way up to what the market will bear.
But here's the big catch, the thing that makes this whole thing tick. Why isn't the extra revenue from a new sale just its price? Because to sell, say, your 11th widget, you have to lower the price for everybody. You can't sell 10 of them for $50 and then just sell the 11th one for $49. No, now all 11 sell for $49. And the money you lost on those first 10 items, that's a hidden cost. That's exactly why, for a monopoly, the extra revenue you get from a new sale is always less than what you're charging for it.
Okay, so the monopoly has its playbook. It's following the rules, and it's making a ton of cash. Great for them. But what's the cost for the rest of us? Let's dig into the real impact of this power on prices, on consumers, and really on the whole economy.
I mean, when you put them side by side, the difference is just stark. In a competitive world, companies produce stuff as long as the price covers the cost of making one more. But a monopolist, they deliberately hold back. They restrict the supply to keep prices artificially high. And the result is always the same. We get less stuff and we pay more for it.
And of course, economists have a way to measure this power. It's called the Lerner index. You can just think of it as a markup score. In a perfectly competitive market, that score is 0. Price equals cost, no markup. But for a monopoly, that score starts to climb. And you know when it gets highest? When we, the customers, have no other options. Think about a life-saving drug that's under patent. Our demand is inelastic. We have to buy it. That's when market power is at its absolute peak.
Let's just put some simple numbers on this to see how it plays out. In this basic example,
The competitive market pumps out 100 units at a price of $50 each. The monopoly? It slashes production in half, down to just 50 units, and by creating that scarcity, it can now charge a much higher price of $75. It's the same product, same cost, but the market structure creates a totally different world.
And this brings us to a huge concept: deadweight loss. Think about those 50 units that the monopoly chose not to make. There were people out there who wanted to buy them, and they were willing to pay a price that was still profitable for the company. It would have been a win-win. But because the monopoly jacked up the price, those deals never happened. That potential value for both the buyer and the seller, it just evaporates. That's deadweight loss. It's pure economic waste.
Okay, so up until now, we've been in this world with one lonely, super powerful company. But what happens when we crack the door open and let a rival step inside? This is where things get really interesting, because now companies have to worry about what their competitors are going to do. So when you just have a few big firms in the game, they can compete in two main ways. First, they can compete on quantity. Think of two big airlines deciding how many seats to offer on a popular route. They'll end up selling more tickets than a single monopoly would, but still not enough to be truly competitive. The other way is to compete on price. Imagine two gas stations right across the street from each other. If one lowers their price by just a penny, they get all the customers. This can trigger a ruthless price war, a race to the bottom that can push the price all the way down to its absolute minimum cost, almost like it was a competitive market all along.
All right, let's head into our final section. Because in the real world, this isn't some one-time decision. It's a repeated, strategic chess match. Firms don't just compete, they anticipate moves, they send signals, they collude, and they build massive walls to protect their turf.
So why don't we see those brutal price wars everywhere? Well, because firms aren't just thinking about today. They know they're going to be facing the same rivals tomorrow and the day after that. And that opens the door for collusion, a kind of quiet, often illegal, understanding to just keep prices high. And it's way easier to pull off when everyone can see what prices their rivals are charging. So it's obvious if somebody tries to cheat and lower their price.
And the chess match isn't just about the players who are already on the board. It's about keeping new players from ever joining the game. A big dominant company can use its power to scare off newcomers. They might use something called limit pricing, where they set their prices just low enough that a new company could never make a profit. Or they can make big strategic moves like building a massive new factory to signal don't even think about it, or signing exclusive long-term deals that lock up all the essential suppliers.
So let's wrap this all up. It starts with market power, the ability to set your price above your cost. We saw how a monopolist uses that one golden rule, MR equals MC, to deliberately create scarcity and charge higher prices. We learned that the strategy actually hurts the whole economy by creating that deadweight loss. And finally, we saw that in the real world, this all plays out as a super complex strategic game, a chess match of pricing, secret agreements, and building walls to keep out the competition.
And that brings us to the final thought. This stuff isn't just theory, right? Think about your internet provider. Think about the company that makes the operating system on your phone. Think about the biggest, most dominant companies in any industry. Market power is everywhere. So the real question is, now that you know the playbook, where do you see this game being played?